Hello and welcome to the Grand Prix podcast. So today we are at the Canadian Grand Prix in a team garage. No, we're not with Mercedes or Ferrari or McLaren.
Red Bull.
To celebrate Drake's new album, we're in the Habibti Racing Garage. Did you get it? Because he has an album called Habibti. And he's Canadian.
I did not know that.
Wow, I really just said Red Bull.
We have asked Drake to write us a special rap all about our time here.
Get out of my head!
What do you mean?
That doesn't make any sense without any context. I was thinking we should do, like, you know, we did Bella Ciao.
Yeah.
I was thinking we should do, what's that song? In My Feelings? You know, with the Kiki, do you love me?
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking we could do that, but as a cover, and it could be the 2026 regulations pleading for the fans to still love them.
I like that.
But that was just a bath thought.
Okay, are you ready to listen to Habibti Racing, Montreal Nights?
Yeah.
Okay, enjoy.
Oh!
Yeah, Grand Prix back in Montreal. Habibti Racing still ain't scored a point, but the hospitality different. Different tears suffering this weekend.
Oh, whoa.
Buzz. Yeah. Touchdown, you with the team looking stressed again. 40 crate, 6 cousins, 1 visa issue with the border check. 8 smoke meet at 3 a.m. with the paddock pass hanging. Now the whole garage smell like turbo heat and cardamom fragrance. High baby said the upgrades coming. None of them fit. Carbon fiber held together with vibes and zip ties from Canadian Tire and shit. We in the paddock next to Ferrari, pretending we don't compare. But our front wing flexing on the straights like Drake's accent, switching mid-year and the team principal walk in. White though be gold chain, oh please. Talking about inshallah podium, brother the car barely starts coldly.
Habibti Racing.
Wait, how'd you get George Joseph Smith? Got you.
Habibti Racing nights. We was outside. Safety car or strategy, but the vibe's still worldwide.
Yeah.
The vibe's still worldwide.
Yeah. Shorty from Laval said she loves Formula 1 now. Only knowing 3 drivers and she calling DRS turbo somehow. I can't even blame her though. The whole city cinematic. Rain clouds over Circuit Gills, Villanelle got everybody dramatic. One mechanic crying quietly, cause Lance passes on lap 2. Now we chain smoking back outside the garage saying we are so cooked to BB is true and honestly move. I seen our strategists lose composure over medium tires down. Loaded 7 weather apps, still managed to set the car on fire. Would never spend $40 million developing a car just to get overtaken by Williams in the turn 10. That changes you, that humbles you spiritually. I seen the man throw a telemetric screen across the garage tonight, and that's a pistachio. Go back like 10 minutes later like nothing happened. That's racing. No, we outside Crescent Street. Team jackets all sad and fake sponsor logos on the car, but the after party actually happening. DJ playing had to be remixes over old Drake cuts. Everybody saying yalla yalla, why the gearbox give up?
Yalla.
Carthy called us an ambitious midfield project. That's British for tragic, but the merch line still sold out cause the brand been too cinematic.
Now it's 2 a.m.
Oh.
Rain falling on the harbor. I'm with 6 engineers arguing if the floor stall cost the understeer. Nobody knows. Somebody order more shawarma to the garage, so morale improved immediately.
More shawarma to the garage.
Habibti Racing nights. Still no points inside. But hospitality suite got marble floors and purple lights. Habibti Racing nights. Montreal sunrise. Car broke down on formation lap, but brother, what a fight.
Yeah, driver says he has no power.
that says he has no power.
Yeah.
That sounds like every Drake song I've ever listened to.
That was amazing.
That was incredible.
That was
Such a banger.
That was sick.
That was such a bop. Why did that work so well?
It slaps. It's fucking cool.
The only thing I would have wanted would have been to have had a brother, and that would have made it perfect.
Yeah.
That was amazing. It was quite an emotional end. The driver has no power.
Yeah.
It's quite
Which
sad.
honestly matches a lot of the drivers.
That's just...
That is such a good song.
What was your favourite lyric that you caught?
Order more shawarma to the garage.
Yeah.
That was nice.
It was, but somebody ordered more shawarma to the garage, so morale improved immediately.
See? That's relatable. It's relatable.
I like the Layla.
Yeah, same.
DJ playing Arabic remixes over old Drake cuts, everybody saying yalla yalla while the gearbox give up.
Amazing. Amazing.
That was incredible. That is so good. Didn't know you had such a good connection with Drake.
Yeah, literally.
Busy mates.
Damn.
My favourite lyric was, Crofty called us an ambitious midfield project. That's British for tragic.
Fantastic work.
Thank you. Now, full disclosure, I did come up with this idea at midnight on like Saturday evening and did not have time to make a beat and find musicians. And, you know, Drake was busy.
Yeah,
so
fair.
I did use some AI for this.
That's fair.
That
That's
is
fair.
fair. But you
Not
know what?
Spawn.
It
still
was a bop.
slaps.
It was a bop from AI.
It's so cool. Honestly, I'm going to start listening to it just on my walks.
Happy to racing tonight. So good.
Yeah, the vocals were on point, I can't lie.
They were, weren't they?
Very
Yeah.
much on point.
Georgia Smith really came through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That song probably cost us like 500 gallons of water, but it was definitely worth it, I reckon.
Listen, some people use AI for therapy, and some people use it to make F1 deepfakes, and I prefer this.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
It's the Daily Prick. I knew that
is.
anywhere.
So this is all the news that's fit to print from the world of Formula One and has everybody talking. Story number 1. Whoever won the sprint race won't be able to celebrate with strippers in the club.
Oh.
I'd like to challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a news headline.
Oh, it is.
Is it?
The Sex Work Autonomous Committee called for Montreal strippers to go on strike in a bid to gain full employment rights. The strike was announced for Saturday the 23rd of May, with strippers issuing a series of demands to achieve recognition as employees with associated rights. Their demands include the abolition of the bar fee, where strippers have to pay to perform in clubs. Other terms include safe and sanitary working conditions and an end to discrimination in hiring and scheduling. Why do you look so confused, Ez?
What the fuck has this got to do with F1?
Well, the decision to strike during the Canadian Grand Prix weekend was fully intentional, and Saturday was named as one of the busiest nights of the year for Montreal strip clubs. The Sex Work Autonomous Committee's statement said that clubs are at their busiest, making it the most lucrative period of the year for our boss. This is our chance to threaten that income and affect them where it hurts the most. During this time, despite management making more money, dancers have to put up with generally worse conditions.
I can't really imagine the drivers the night before the actual race just going off to a strip club to celebrate anyway.
Well, it's probably the fans, realistically.
Oh, fair. So the headline was wrong.
But the Saturday before the Canadian Grand Prix is the busiest period in Montreal strip clubs.
Interesting.
I think that's good. I think. I don't really know.
What, that they're striking?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
it hurts.
TFL workers can. Why can't they?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not against, sorry, just to say, I'm not judging sex workers. Like, do your thing, baby. Like, I love Cardi B more than most people. But, she was a stripper. What? She was a stripper.
I did not realise she was.
Yeah, she was a stripper
You were just
before.
calling her a stripper.
She's like, won like a Grammy for best rapper. Yeah, that stripper out there. I don't judge her. No, she was a stripper before. I mean, she was always very proud of being a stripper, and
Yeah.
I kind of rated it, to be honest. So it's not that I'm judging sex workers. Why am I like the sex work community haven't come for me? But anyway, I guess it's only 8 points for a sprint. Is that worth a lap dance?
Fair. Celebrate on Sunday
I
instead.
don't know. I feel like maybe like a full 25-point win is like a lap dance worthy sort of situation. And
Yeah,
as
but-
you say, they've got to be back up again for the next race. So
But
like,
realistically, it's probably the fans that are the ones in the strip clubs, and they've got work on a Monday morning. So
Sorry, I've been a Formula One fan for so many years.
I've never seen you in the strip club.
Sorry, I know that made it sound like I was like.
There's meetups all the time.
The girls wear costumes and look like the drivers.
Imagine the strip dance though with like a full racing costume. That would take fucking ages.
No, I wanted to like the cars.
Fucking F1 Transformers.
No, I was going to say, like, it's like, if you're travelling internationally to go to the Canadian Grand Prix, that's expensive in itself, because Canada is quite spenny to get there. But on top of that, like, me and Nav have gone to the Italian Grand Prix. It's expensive. Everything's really expensive. How have you got...
And everyone hoiks up their prices because it is such a busy weekend as well.
Especially when you guys went to the strip clubs.
Yeah.
Well, but I don't get how they have the money on top of that to then, like, go to a cash point and get loads of ones out and go start, like, throwing it around in a strip club. Like, are you not tired? It's really fucking long walking around a racetrack. They're so big.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they do it to sit down for a bit. Maybe that's it.
Just wanted a break. How did I end up here?
Yeah, that sounds like a typical, like, married man excuse. And I was just tired. I wanted to sit down. If she's dancing on me, that's not my problem.
I thought it was a normal bar.
All right, story number 2. Lewis is here to stay, or so he says.
What?
If you listened to our last episode, you'd have heard us spilling the tea on the latest goss in F1. One of those topics was the rumour that Lewis is planning to announce his retirement during the Silverstone weekend. Well, the Brit has put an end to those rumours once and for all. He said during the driver's press conference, "I'm still under contract, so everything's 100% clear to me. I'm still focused, I'm still motivated, I still love what I do with all my heart, and I'm going to be here for quite some time, so get used to it. There's a lot of people that are trying to retire me, and that's not even all my thoughts. I'm already thinking of what will be next and planning for, like, the next 5 years, but I still plan to be here for some time."
Too right. I mean, I've said it before, like, it's kind of weird. Like, if someone in your office started spreading a rumour that you were going to retire and it wasn't true, everyone would be like, that's fucking strange. It wouldn't hold much validity because you'd go to the person in the corner and say, "Hey, you know Sally's saying that you're going to retire," and she'd be like, "That bitch again is fucking lying." And then that'd be like, "Oh, fair, Sally's a weirdo." But because Lewis is obviously famous and he's an F1 driver, as soon as the word retirement comes up, by the way, Fernando Alonso, hello? Like, he is still racing. No one's asking about his retirement.
Well, actually, he said that he's not going to retire until his son is old enough to sit in one of his cars. So he's going to be around for a while.
He ends up getting a baby car seat for the F1 car, and he's like, "See, now I can retire."
But he's a child. He can sit in the seat now if he wanted to.
he's a
Just hold his
newborn.
head up. Yeah. He has
Hold
a
his
bum.
head up.
Fair.
Like, that's just an open-ended thing. He can technically sit in the car now. So what does he mean? Like, no, when he can sit in the car and turn the ignition on, then I will retire. But like, no. I mean, it's exciting to hear that Lewis wants to stay and is motivated. That's great. I don't know how Ferrari will feel about that. Maybe at some point his performance might not be meeting the expectations and they might want somebody younger and the next generation to come up, as we're seeing with like Kimi Antonelli, for example. But whilst he's here, just enjoy it whilst he's here. You won't have Lewis Hamilton in racing again once he's gone. And, you know, for new fans that maybe don't know Lewis's legacy, just enjoy watching someone of that level and caliber race around these racetracks with these young ones. Yes, he looks old. yes, he's a bit older. But once he's gone, at least you'll be able to say, "I've watched Lewis Hamilton racing." Because I was able to watch Michael Jackson. What the hell am I saying? I was able to watch Michael Schumacher race. And at the time he was with Mercedes and he was out of his massive, you know, golden era of Ferrari dominance. But it was still fucking cool to say that I saw him race. So just enjoy it, man. Enjoy it until it ends, you know?
Also, very uncalled for rumours, because in 2025, that was when his performance really wasn't that good, and that was because the Ferrari car was just awful and he was struggling with strategy in the team. But he's not been doing that bad in 2026. He's been doing quite a decent job, so I feel like the rumours should have been going on last year, not this year.
The rumour mill turns whether there's things to talk about it or not. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, the latest rumour surrounding Lewis is that he broke up with Kim Kardashian amid the scandal that her Skims shipment was carrying cocaine.
Oh.
That makes him look mad guilty.
Yeah.
Well, you need to distance yourself from that.
He travels the world. He can literally smuggle on his own. Why does he need Skims for it?
Well, yeah, but why is he distancing himself? Like, I don't want to be rude. Like, Kim Kardashian is kind of a queen and kind of not all in one.
Yeah.
But, like, you're accepting quite a lot of things about her. Like, you know, there's quite a lot of things about us that are the, you know, might be, you know, what am I trying to say? She's a bit strange. Her past is a bit fucking weird, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of very questionable things that she's done and has been in the public eye for. Suddenly, some cocaine in a box being sent somewhere is the least of his bloody worries.
Yeah.
Like, she's Kim Kardashian. I feel like I'm saying things without... You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
She's Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of weird
Yeah.
things she's done.
I think their relationship is fake. Anyway.
You think it's a showman's?
Yeah.
What would either of them get from that?
They don't need more publicity.
Yeah, but maybe Lewis is preparing for wanting to get more fame post-retirement. So if he retires in the next
I don't think he
1 to 2
needs more
years.
bloody
Yeah.
fame. I think he just needs to get his head down.
Yeah.
He has 7 world championships and he chaired the Met.
I don't know. I don't see it. They're too PDA, and I feel like when a couple is too PDA, then it's usually a showman's.
Okay, do I take that as that's your outlook on all relationships or just celebrity relationships?
Celebrities of like their status.
Were you about to say, cool, in my relationship, I'll be avoidant as fuck?
I don't want to be outed by Reem as a showman.
But if you think about it, like, Kim has had other relationships since Kanye, and not all of them she's been very public with. There was, like, Pete Davidson she was quite public with, but then the rest not so much.
There was one person on the show where she didn't reveal their identity at all, if you remember.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, with Lewis, he's also quite a private person as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he doesn't seem to be PDA in other relationships he's had.
Yeah.
Well, his main relationship was with Nicole Scherzinger back in the day. They were quite committed to one another, but I don't know that.
But you didn't see it with, like, Shakira.
No, but I don't know if any of those. I don't know that I've seen Lewis in a proper, like, public relationship that spanned a long time apart from Nicole Scherzinger.
Yeah, and suddenly they're on, like, vacations together, and there's pictures of them kissing and them attending
Coachella.
public events together. Yeah, so I feel like that is giving more showmance.
Interesting.
She's got a point. Okay, story number 3. Lando lifts his helmet lid on the race against dementia.
I loved his race helmet this weekend. It was awesome. And it sounds like there's a very nice cause behind it, which makes it even better. But genuinely, ditch the neon and black, go with this every race weekend. Loved it. Amazing design. Google it. If you're listening to this and you don't know what it looks like, Google it, type, press enter, have a look. You've got it. Isn't it nice? Thank you.
So Norris is wearing a special one-off helmet at the Canadian Grand Prix for Formula One world champion Jackie Stewart's charity, Race Against Dementia.
We love Jackie Stewart here at Grand Prix.
We do.
Who
She
is
doesn't
that?
know him.
Reem.
Oh.
Jackie. This aren't me. Remember in the 60s, he was trying to help get safety. I'm still saying something.
Remember the 60s?
Hear the 60s and start immediately shaking your head. We don't mean personally.
Do you remember in the 60s of Formula One, we did our safety episode? Well, we didn't do the safety episode in the 60s. We did a safety episode. Jesus Christ. We did this F1 safety episode through the decades, and we talked about Jackie Stewart, who was trying his best to reform safety in the sport. And he had a very scary crash at one point.
Yes, I think so.
Great.
Well, Jackie Stewart founded the charity after his wife Helen was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. Lando revealed a split design helmet based on the concept of synapses, the neural connections fundamental to how the brain works and the damage done by dementia.
Wow.
He said, the design is in 2 halves. One side shows a healthy brain and the other side shows a brain affected by synaptic loss. Lando's merch store will also be making mini versions of the design with all profits going directly to Race Against Dementia.
Get me, I don't want a helmet, but
I
get
love
me
that.
a t-shirt of that design and I would happily wear it. I'm all down for it. I love the fact that Lando's using his platform. He's obviously got a lot of fame, a lot of fans, a lot of attention because he's just won the championship and because he's a nice guy. And on top of that, he's using it to be able to get people looking at that helmet and being able to raise awareness. So give me a t-shirt and I will wear it throughout summer. And honestly, make it a little bit light, sort of lightweight design, because it's absolutely fucking boiling currently. But I love that idea. That's awesome work. Amazing work all round.
I think more drivers should take a page out of his book. I mean, they're a platform every single time they go into a race weekend and all eyes are on them. So you might as well do things like this where you're using your helmet, like Williams did last year as well, like with the sticker, the unicorn sticker and stuff. Use your platform, use your racing suit, use your helmet to promote something that is for a good cause. And I think it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, completely. The cars, the suits, the drivers, they are all walking billboards for all of the sponsors. It's good to highlight a charity as well.
Yeah, it doesn't all need to be like, cryptocurrencies and Velo and all of the shit. Like, it shouldn't just be like, oh, the team want to have this sponsor for the weekend, so we're going to change the race suit. Like, I like it when the racers go off and they have their own collaborations, whether that be with designers or with charities or with initiatives. I think it's awesome. Sebastian Vettel, actually, 4-time world champion who's retired now, he used to do that a lot. He used to wear
Lewis Pride.
Yes, I was going to say Sebastian Vettel had a lot of rainbow flags and designs on his helmets in countries where the LGBTQ plus IAA community weren't represented or had the same amount of rights as heterosexual people. Boom! Mic drop.
All right, story number 4. Horny Horner strikes again.
Oh.
What?
Or at least he's trying to.
Where? With who?
Christian Horner is said to be in advanced negotiations with BYD after spending 2 days in Cannes with their vice president.
Who the fuck are BYD?
We
That's
were in
what
an
I was
Uber
gonna say.
once and we were in a car that was a BYD. And remember the driver said it's build your dreams?
Oh yeah, that was a wanky thing to say. Was he being serious?
Yeah, that is genuinely
Oh,
what
I thought
BYD
he was
stands for.
joking.
No, that's genuinely it. It's a Chinese car manufacturer.
Build your dreams? I thought that guy was joking.
No, genuine. It is build your dreams.
And I was like, I remember being like, oh. He must have been like, don't patronise me, it's the name you asked. Wow.
So there are 2 ways for BYD to enter in F1 currently. One is for the car manufacturer to acquire a stake in Alpine, but the other one, which Horner seems to be lobbying for, is to get the Chinese brand to create its own F1 team.
No!
And become the 12th team on the grid.
No,
I mean, just
don't
look
want
at
that from Christian
Cadillac this
Horner.
year and take that as your sign to not do it.
I don't need that from Christian Horner. I don't want a new team with Christian Horner. What I want is for him to rebuild a team that's already on the grid, and I think Alpine is the right way to go. I want him back, okay? Fine. I know it's fucking toxic. I know it's bad. I can't help it. I want him back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I miss him. I want to see him in, with his little squinty eyes, having a little look at things, being involved in things, saying bitchy things for no reason in conferences, causing a ruckus. I miss him. He's so toxic, but he's like that toxic uncle at a wedding. You always have to have him there.
Well, Alpine seem to be in a bit of trouble with their finances at the moment because there's quite a lot of rumours about different people trying to acquire stakes in Alpine. It looks like they're, basically asking for people to get involved. Another big storyline is that Gucci might acquire Alpine.
Oh, whoa.
And I've seen
love
the
that.
AI renders
Yeah,
of
the
what
AI
the
renders
Gucci
look
car looks
lame as
like,
hell.
and it's sick.
Ew.
No, it looks good.
No, trust
Okay.
me. It looked fucking nice. It had a bit of the monogram sort of logo, and then it had like the green little streaks of red. It looked really nice.
And imagine the merch.
It would be Gucky.
Gucky.
Gucky gang.
Gucky gang, Gucky gang, Gucky gang.
Okay, yeah, that does look cool. I just searched it up.
Yeah,
does look
it
cool,
looks
right?
good, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Do you feel embarrassed that you were a hater like 4 seconds ago?
Well, I thought it was going to be like the really cheesy bag designs that they've got, but that on an F1 car, and that's what I had envisioned in my head, and I was like, no, that would be very, very ugly. But this is cool.
Fair enough.
And the final story of the Daily Prick. Zach Brown hates sisters.
What?
When's the war on women going to end?
And
Fuck is that for a headline?
And by that, I obviously mean sister teams.
I
I should work for the Daily Mail. I'm so good at the clickbaity titles.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Zach. Sorry for bringing up the war on women.
I was thinking like Sister Wives is right.
It's clear that our current society has got us women really on the defence.
So Zach Brown has urged the FIA to tighten F1's rules to eliminate alliances between teams, as rumours have been circulating around the possible purchase of Alpine by Mercedes as well.
Ew, no, I don't like that. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
But his complaint also covers existing allegiances, meaning the Bulls. He said, "We need to eliminate any additional alliances, whether through ownership, strategic stakes, or any other equivalent form of control or influence, and we need to work together quickly to begin the process of dismantling those already in place to ensure the future integrity of the sport is not compromised."
I hate to admit it, because it sounds like a controversial take, but I'm actually on it. Yeah,
No,
I'm
I
actually on
get
his
his
side.
point. I get his point, and I remember, I forgot which episode we were talking about, like, sister teams in. I remember thinking, like, I don't think it's a great idea to have a sister team in F1, and I don't think it's very fair, because ultimately they've got an advantage on that track. If it was that one of the racing bulls was at the front, and it was also Max's chance to get a podium, and that could win him like a championship, they can easily let him pass. Team orders would let him pass because the sister team shouldn't be outperforming the main team. So they've got like allies on that track, and none of the other teams have allies. So I don't think it's very fair for them to have that.
It limits some of the competition, and I think that's at the cause of it, is that, as you say, there can be cars allowed to be let by, cars aggressively defended against because of alliances to their older teams, and ultimately you want it to be a strategic gamble on everything that happens. You don't want there to be a chance that one team is disadvantaged because of a sister team and a big brother team sort of working together. And as much as it's great to have, like, I like the fact they have like sort of a feeder system in Red Bull and things like that. Racing bulls aren't ever going to win a championship. Make room for new brands, for new drivers, for new revenue streams, for new ways into the sport. So if you can create a ladder where you have more people coming in because there's other systems, not just, the Red Bull program is just for getting into racing bulls and then later getting into Red Bull. But if they just had the Red Bull program going into Red Bull and they then separately had a different team that had their own way in, it's more people into the sport. So I think that they should be looking at that. And I'm completely on Zach Brown's side, but at the same time, if he was able to get himself a sister team, I'm sure he'd shut up. So money talks.
Fair. I say bring it back down to 10 teams on the track and only 20 drivers. I don't know how I feel about the whole 11 and 22 drivers on there, because also it's less chances to make it through qualifying when you have the additional number.
I'd argue it's more competition, though.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the system worked when it was just 10 on the track.
Maybe it ruins some of the elitism of being in the sport if there's more places as well. I don't know. I'm undecided about it.
Yeah, because if they get 10th, they're like at least on 11th.
I'd argue that's the case if there were 20 drivers as well.
Yeah, fair.
Amazing argument from you there.
I know.
I enjoyed that.
All right, girlies, it's time for the Sprint Quali Hot Lap. The highlights from the Canadian Grand Prix sprint qualifying all done and dusted quicker than you can say. I've never fully understood what a sprint weekend is, but I'm going to nod confidently anyway. So SQ1 got underway with Lewis Hamilton first on track, sporting the yellow stripe medium tyres, which all of the drivers have to use for SQ1 and SQ2. Liam Lawson and Alex Albon did not take part in sprint qualifying. Lawson had damage to his car sustained during practice, and Alex hit a marmot during practice, also sustaining damage. In case you were curious, a marmot is a large ground-dwelling squirrel famous for its high-pitched whistle calls, which inspired the name of the Canadian ski resort Whistler.
Sorry. That was amazing. I need to see what the fuck a mammoth is. Is that what you said it was?
Marmot?
A marmot.
Marmot? Marmot.
Mammoth.
M-A-R...
A mammoth? Was it a mammoth?
M-A-R-M-O-T.
Oh, those things!
Oh!
No, I thought they were beavers. What the fuck?
They're adorable!
Is a marmot... Whoa. Is a marmot not a groundhog?
It's a ground-dwelling squirrel.
Look at this photo. It's been shocked by a fox. Oh! Look at that photo. You know what? That's me. I'm so jumpy in person.
I thought this picture was of them hugging. It turns out one of them is choking the other.
It looks like they're having sex.
No, they're too far apart.
Okay, with 7 minutes to go, Leclerc was on top of the timing sheets ahead of his teammate. They were in the 1 minute 15s, but Russell came out and went to the top.
With a Russell hustle.
Yeah.
Guys? Is this thing on?
He went to the top in the 1 minute 14s along with Lando Norris. 1 minute later, Verstappen takes the top, nearly 3/10 clear of Russell, but then comes an even hotter lap from Antonelli. He goes a whole 4/10 faster, but is then beaten by Hamilton. With 2 minutes to go, Hamilton leads, Antonelli is second, Verstappen is third, and Norris is fourth. Lindblad impressed in fifth, ahead of Hadjar and Piastri. Russell is in eighth after aborting his lap. But then disaster strikes and a red flag is flown as Alonso puts his car in the wall at turn 3. The green light is finally shown again, and there's only 1 minute 46 seconds left of SQ1. Sainz is at the front of the queue in the pit lane, followed by Stroll and Hamilton in third, despite being at the top of the timing sheets. Behrman, Gasly and Ocon follow, and then come the Audi boys.
Audi boys.
Sainz managed to get to the final chicane to start his flying lap with 18 seconds to go. Stroll made it, Hamilton too, but everyone else did not get around in time. That means that Perez, Gasly and Bottas are out, along with Albon and Lawson, who didn't take part. SQ2 kicks off with Russell out first on fresh mediums, and Antonelli followed, also on a nice, new, shiny set. Colapinto is next, the only Alpine left standing, ahead of the Haas duo. The track temperature is 41 degrees, but the teams decide that a second warm-up lap was needed to get the tyres and batteries in the right working range. Hamilton goes to the top on his first push lap, but then comes the Mercedes pair, and Russell goes top, Antonelli second. With 4 minutes to go, Behrman, Colapinto, Bortoleto, Hülkenberg, Verstappen and Alonso are in the drop zone, with Alonso not taking part because of his SQ1 crash and Max not setting a time thus far. Bortoleto improves to P9, dropping Sainz into the danger zone. With 2 minutes left, Verstappen is ninth. Russell goes faster than his existing top time as Hamilton goes second. Leclerc improves to fourth as Bortoleto goes P10 to drop Sainz down. In the last minute, Verstappen headed into the pits, deciding that P9 was safe enough. It's a risky move. When the checkered flag was waved, Colapinto couldn't make it out of the elimination zone. Behrman is also out, so it all rests on Sainz to improve. Verstappen in P9 is going to scrape through by the skin of his teeth. Sainz did make it to P10, dropping Hülkenberg out, joining Bortoleto, Colapinto, Ocon, Behrman and Alonso, who again didn't take part. SQ3 brings out the soft tyres for the final showdown for sprint pole. Hamilton heads out first, followed by Hadjar and Sainz. Hamilton didn't need 2 warm-up laps, but abandoned his first push lap after sliding through turn 2. Hadjar behind wasn't pushing either. With 4 minutes to go, Hamilton sets a 1 minute 13, 2/10 up on Hadjar, who gets knocked down by Verstappen, only 900ths back on Hamilton. But then comes Russell, who takes the top spot, 2/10 faster than Hamilton. Antonelli's lap was only good for third, only 7,000 up on Verstappen. Final laps now, Hamilton's improved but is still only good for second, Verstappen stayed in fourth, and then Norris knocked them both down, putting his car in P2.
Come on, champion.
Russell extended his advantage and Piastri wasn't able to beat his teammate, and then Antonelli snatched the front row away from the papaya champ, placing himself in P2. In the end, Russell made his way up to pole and back in front of his teammate. Antonelli took P2, Norris was third ahead of Piastri, and then came Hamilton and Leclerc, Verstappen and Hadjar, Lindblad and Sainz. Now I think the sprint was quite good, considering the racing we've had so far this year.
May I have the floor for a second, ladies?
You may.
Sure.
I did say previously that everybody was being too fucking nice. I needed some grit. I needed some nastiness. I needed some elbows out, some heads will roll kind of mentality. Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you for listening to my fucking plea and taking it so seriously. Lots of kisses for you. Thank God. Jesus. I mean, let's be honest, girls. I know we're trying to be all positive about the podcast, but Jesus Christ, we've got races being cancelled because of the war. We've got the regulations that are poo. You've got super clipping. You've got teams that have been joined into the races and they're not even competitive whatsoever. We've got vibrations in an Aston Martin. We've got an overweight Williams. And then finally we get to racing and it's just Mercedes are going to win every single time. So thank you, Mercedes, because now I am invested. You've got my attention. Now let's see if you can keep it, because that was sensational. I loved it. It was a good moment of psychology for Russell, because he was saying that Miami was a bogey track and that, like, who even cares? I don't even fucking care about Miami. Miami's so boring. Canada's a real track. That's where real racing happens. Shut up about Miami. It doesn't matter. And then he came to Canada and he needed to be ahead of Antonelli. He needed to be ahead of him. So the scrap that we watched was very fun. and ultimately Russell winning. I do think it was a good psychological moment for him.
So for anyone who didn't watch the sprint, let me give you a quick rundown of what happened. Home hero Lance Stroll's car was being worked on the grid. It looked like a front suspension issue, and Aston Martin only had a few minutes to fix it before the grid needed to be cleared. In the end, they pushed him back into the pit lane. He did start the race eventually. Most of the drivers down the back used this as a test session for the Grand Prix, and 4 drivers started from the pit lane: Gasly, Bottas, Albon and Behrman, and eventually as well Stroll, who was pushed back. The drama began to unfold towards the end of lap 5 as Antonelli tried to pass Russell, and it looked like they touched. Kimi ended up cutting the corner at turn 2 before running off the road again shortly after, labelling his teammates' defence as very naughty. Antonelli called for a penalty, believing that he was forced off track. Norris squeezed through to take P2. Bono says to Antonelli, "Let's get this back under control, focus on Norris." And Antonelli replied saying, "I don't care, he pushed me out." And then Toto comes on the radio saying, "Concentrate on the driving, please, and not on the radio moaning." On the last lap, Antonelli made a move, overtook Norris, braked far too late into turn 1, ran wide, and Norris got back past. Russell takes the win, his second sprint victory of the year. He beats Norris and Antonelli. Piastri holds on to 4th ahead of Leclerc and Hamilton, Verstappen and Lindblad. Antonelli came back onto the radio once the race was over, saying, "If we need to race like this, then good to know." But he is quickly hushed off by Toto Wolff, who says, "It's the 4th time to talk about this. We shall talk about it internally and not over team radio." Hülkenberg received a 10-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Perez received a 10-second time penalty for forcing another driver off the track. Alonso was the only driver to retire, saying that there was contact at turn 1, and with the damage to the front of the car, we were ultimately forced to retire. That is all she wrote.
I feel for Antonelli. I mean, it must be so frustrating and unfair that there's now signs of Mercedes potentially wanting to prioritize George in this championship.
I don't know that he was being prioritized at all.
Yeah, but him being told to shush basically on the radio
Shush.
when shush on the radio.
Not shush!
Shush.
There you go.
On the radio, when George Cairns out on the radio all the time, he doesn't get that
very
treatment. Kimi speaks up once and he gets a telling off. It's
but I
not
think
fair.
it's because this is the first time that we're seeing Antonelli get proper hot-headed, and it's not just because he's complaining over the radio, it's because he got so hot-headed that he was making mistakes which allowed Norris to take P2 and wasn't able to get it back. And then where he was still driving angry and frustrated, when he then tried to overtake Norris again, he had the same issue. He started driving sloppy when he was angry, and I think they could see that as well.
Yeah, I think sort of his inexperience showed, if I'm honest. Also, I feel like he was a loser of the sprint race, but that's not to say that his driving wasn't amazing to watch. But as you said, Nav, really well put. He lost out on P2 because of the fact that he was just driving in, a bit argy-bargy. And you can always tell when a driver's racing angry. Their attempts at things get a bit more intentional, they get a bit more deliberate with turning the steering wheel, and you can just tell they seem frustrated. But not only that, they had Bono, his race engineer, trying to calm this kid down, and he just wasn't having it. And Russell's driving, that move, I can understand why he was pissed off. Russell really did toe the line between how you race with your teammate, and ultimately Kimi Antonelli was not fucking having it. Yeah, I think that they recognised they had to rein this kid in a little bit, which is the first time I've seen Antonelli like this, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I fucking loved it.
I loved it too, but you said at the start of this segment, thank fuck we finally getting some aggression out of these drivers and some proper racing. But I think Mercedes are kind of wanting to do this, and you think of Mercedes and you think it's a gentleman's car. I think they want their drivers to be a bit more composed, and where Kimi is so young, they're kind of helping to build his mentality around racing. So they start seeing this aggression, they want to nip it in the bud and be like, no, that's not how we race. I think that's more what it's about.
I don't care about that, because as much as they might want that, when the visor goes down and the helmet's on, suddenly, that's a different being that you're dealing with.
Suddenly you're not in a team, you're on your own.
You're not looking at the race commentary. You're not seeing all of the camera angles like we are. What Antonelli is looking at is the back of a fucking Merc, and he wants to not see that anymore. And these drivers have a competitive nature that is, defies will sometimes. And that is why they are in that sport. So as much as that's what they like to do, when things get heated and you're in the midst of battle, you're not thinking about the brand that you're driving for and what your boss might like you to do in that moment. If you see a gap, you're going to fucking go for it. And I applaud the aplomb that Kimi Antonelli and George Russell raced with in the sprint.
That word.
Same. One more time.
Aplomb.
Reem?
Yeah, I mean, I like the aggression.
No, sorry. I actually was going to ask you to say aplomb.
Aplomb.
No, you didn't say it. You didn't say the P at the end.
Is it plump?
No, a plomp.
Pump.
What?
Is that what you say? A plump.
No,
Plump.
plomp.
A
No,
plump.
plomp.
Plomp.
A plump.
No, a plomp.
A plump.
Plomp.
A plump. A plump.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I like the aggression as well. I like that that's coming out. I like that there's a bit more of like an excitement to watch it, because I'm not gonna lie, when I heard that there was a sprint weekend for Canada, I was over it. Because we already had one from Miami, and when the racing is boring, it's really frustrating to go through having to watch sprint qualifying, and then the sprint, and then qualifying, and then the actual race. And it's long. So it's good that it was an entertaining sprint. I do feel for Antonelli. Like I said, I feel like it's I don't know, there's something shady. George has been endlessly carrying out on the radio and being a little brat. And I get Antonelli needed to be called out for it and said like, oh, we need to discuss this, Antonelli. But I don't see that same treatment happening for George. When he's been
your
a little
spidey
bit.
senses are tingling.
Exactly. Antonelli has won 3 races in a row, before the Canada Grand Prix. George has only won 1. He needs a bit more respect than that. I get he's a kid, but he should be given his flowers.
I think what they don't want is for them to both collide, and they could tell that this teenager was driving angry, and they don't want it to end up in the Wall of Champions or another part of the circuit, because he's so intent on just dive bombing on his teammate so that he can, that would be winning the battle but losing the war, because they still have Sunday that they need to go racing on.
Yeah.
So I guess that's also part of it. But I get your point. I think Mercedes were trying to sort of, similar to McLaren last year, trying to, every time sort of something erupted slightly, they would sort of take the lid off and say, no, it's okay, let that simmer down.
No.
And I think that's what they were trying to do. But ultimately, I'm sure that Kimi and George will be able to have a chat and do a debrief, and they'll be fine. They're not going to be, that's not the last time they speak to each other. But if it carries on like this, I don't know that George will be sort of, patting him on the head and saying, oh, little Kimi, because he is performing the fuck out of this season so far. He is getting paid, and he's doing exactly what he's paid to do. Maybe better than they were expecting at this point in his career. I just hope that he's not doing an Oscar Piastri of 2025, where he comes out of the gates really, really hot, and then sort of peters out, and then, his successor of George, who's been in the team longer, more integrated, ends up taking the trophy at the end of the year. But that, we don't know that outcome yet. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was the sprint. Should we get on to the main Grand Prix qualifying? Q1 started with drama right off the bat, with both Stroll and Alonso under investigation for unsafe releases. Alonso came out of the garage and got a bit too close for comfort to Colapinto, while Stroll was released with a wonky wheel rim. Both were investigated after the session. After the first runs, Norris was on top, 4/10 clear of Verstappen, with Colapinto third and Piastri fourth. But then the Mercs hit the timing boards. Russell went second but dropped to third after Antonelli set his time. Alonso, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Stroll, Gasly and Leclerc were the men in danger. Leclerc had his lap time deleted. Antonelli took the top spot, with Hadjar claiming second. Lindblad then slotted into P3 and Russell in P4. Perez was added to the list of drivers to be investigated after the session for failing to follow the correct procedure when returning to the track. With 4 minutes to go, Bortoleto, Alonso, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Stroll and Gasly were the drivers in trouble. Gasly was hampered by traffic on both of his runs. When the Q1 time came to an end, it was Ocon, Albon, Alonso, Perez, Stroll and Bottas that were eliminated. Q2 started with the news that Lewis Hamilton was going to be investigated after the session for impeding Gasly. The drivers were back to double warm-up laps, as we saw during the sprint qualifying session. With 9 minutes to go, Russell was setting personal bests, but it wasn't enough. He crossed the line fourth behind Norris, Hamilton and Piastri. So far in this session, Antonelli, Norris and Hadjar are the boys to beat. With 5 minutes left on the clock, Colapinto, Sainz, Bortoleto, Behrman, Gasly and Lawson were in the drop zone, with Lawson without a representative time. Leclerc was down in P9 with just enough time for a final lap when he was called to the weighbridge. It was all getting a bit squeaky bum time for him. The flag came out just after Hamilton went to the top of the timing sheet. Russell improved to third, just 3 thousandths behind his teammate, and then Hadjar went to the top. In the end, no real surprises. It was Hülkenberg, Lawson, Bortoleto, Gasly, Sainz and Behrman that were knocked out. Q3 was full of joy for Colapinto, who shrieked, "Let's go, yes, vamos," on the radio when finding out that he survived Q2. Leclerc was less enthusiastic as he'd been struggling all weekend, saying Q3 would be either in the wall or P8. With 6 minutes to go, Norris sits on top, a 10th clear of Hamilton and nearly 3/10 clear of Piastri. Antonelli is 4th ahead of Leclerc, Verstappen, Lindblad, Colapinto and Hadjar. And then Russell came out and the final lap times came in. Russell set a 1 minute 12.578 to beat Antonelli by 0.068 seconds, the exact same gap as in sprint qualifying.
Damn.
Norris was 3rd ahead of Piastri, Hamilton 5th again, and then came Verstappen, who beat Hadjar in the end by 0.02 of a second. Leclerc was 8th, so stay tuned to the episode where we discuss whether he is psychic, ahead of Lindblad and Colapinto, who round out the top 10. The stewards had 5 incidents to investigate. Alonso for an unsafe release in the pit lane, Stroll for being released in an unsafe condition, Perez for not following race directors' instructions when returning to the track, and 2 impeding incidents between Gasly and Hamilton and Hülkenberg and Stroll. Aston Martin was fined €5,000 for Alonso's unsafe release, only to be hit by a further €7,500 for allowing Lance Stroll's car to leave the pits in an unsafe condition. Sergio Perez was given a warning for failing to adhere to race directors' notes, and nothing came of those impeding incidents. That was quali.
Very nice.
When we were watching quali after Q2, Nav was saying, like, ooh, like, this might be exciting, as in saying, like, it might not be Mercedes at the top. And I said, Mercedes will pull something out of their ass and will end up at the top.
Oh.
I just know it. And they did.
So you're joining Leclerc in the psychic club?
Yes.
Because he said
I am psychic.
Q3 is either going to be P8 or in the wall, and he ended P8.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the better of the 2 options, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think Ferrari thinks so as well.
Yeah.
And it is Russell's 3rd consecutive pole position in Canada as well. So he does love this track.
He's always been known as Mr. Saturday. So, this makes complete sense. And he does like Canada as a track, which also makes a lot of sense.
Are we ready to get into the race?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought the start procedure was a big bag of dicks. What the fuck happened there?
Yeah.
I mean, I was so confused. I was excited. It was raining. I was intrigued to see that McLarens were on intermediate tyres when there was a light smattering of some water. I was intrigued by the fact that there was soft, medium and intermediate tyres up and down the grid. I was intrigued to see Lewis Hamilton, what he was interested in doing, as he's been on fine form this weekend. I was trepidatiously excited to see what might happen between the 2 Mercedes boys. And I wanted to see how far up the grid can Leclerc and how much of a nuisance will Verstappen be. And instead, I was watching some lights have a complete freak out. And then Antonelli jumped the start, but it wasn't a start because it was a non-start. We did an extra formation lap, and then we had to do an extra formation lap, and finally we went fucking racing. I mean, what the fuck was that about?
Lindblad.
Lindblad, yeah, little down. He was down Lindblad.
Yeah.
So it'd been spitting on and off in Montreal. It was a bit greasy and a bit slippery. Before the drivers got into their cars, all of them were saying, "Ooh, it's looking a bit greasy, it's looking a bit slippery, la la la."
Actually, Max said slippery when wet.
Yes, he did.
And he also did say la la la.
He did,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
He sang it, actually.
Yeah, his bum out.
So Lance started from the pit lane, deciding to replace the battery and make several other setup changes to the car. As the drivers made their way to the grid, many of them were running wide and locking up. Are you happy on the tyres or do you want intermediates, is what was asked of Piastri, and he said, "Honestly, I have no idea." And then once the tyre blankets came off, we saw a real mix. So on intermediate tyres, you had Norris, Piastri, Perez, Bottas, Hülkenberg, Bortoleto and Sainz. Lawson, Lindblad and Colapinto were on mediums. Antonelli, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Hadjar, Verstappen and Behrman were on softs. So we then have the formation lap. And then once the drivers are all lined up and parked in their grid spots, the green flag is waved, the start procedure begins and all the cars start revving their engines. But then Lindblad has stalled. He can't get his car into gear. Race control called for an extra formation lap to give Racing Bulls time to push Lindblad's car back into the pit lane. On this extra formation lap, Piastri radios in to say these inters are a mistake now. but nothing comes of it. The cars then start lining up again, but Lindblad's car is still being wheeled away, so because the cars had been waiting for too long, race control called for another formation lap. More calls come in from Piastri about the Inters being the wrong tyres, but McLaren choose to stick with them. And finally, the race begins. Norris managed to take the lead at the start, but it's not long before everyone who started on those Inters decided to ditch them, which dropped the McLaren boys out of point-scoring positions.
Yeah, I think intermediates was obviously the wrong choice, but
Completely.
you can't sit there and say, I don't know what race tyre we should go for, and then be unhappy with the tyre they give you. I mean, you've got to give them a fucking input. You're the fucking driver.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was a bit amateur hour from McLaren, but I'm not really sure why they did
But
it.
Piastri kept saying on all of those extra formation laps, the Inters are a bad idea. Why not just pull him into the pit lane there and then?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think they ended up making it more painful for themselves by having to then pit once the racing had actually got started, and they got pitted further down the field. They were completely out of sequence with the top dogs that they were trying to fight against. And they both had a miserable race in the end, really, didn't they? You know, they had a fucking terrible time. I mean, Lando Norris didn't even finish the race. He had a gearbox issue, and that was all she wrote. But it wasn't great, and I thought it was disappointing for the drivers because they both seem to have pace, and it would have been nice to have had them added into the mix. Disappointing, but you know, it could have pulled off. If the rain had come in 10 minutes later, they would have looked like heroes. But if the rain doesn't come in, you look like an idiot. So that's just the things you have to go for when you're trying to gamble on strategy.
Norris had like a decent start because he took the lead in like the first lap, and then it was a McLaren shit show after that. Like you said, he didn't even finish the race.
Well, he was able to take the lead early off the line because the intermediates gave them more grip, where it was slippery. But then obviously, as you say, then when everyone's tyre temperatures started to get up to speed, it then meant that Lando Norris was under threat again, because then he was, didn't have the same amount of speed as the people behind were on bloody soft tyres, which offers, the shortest amount of lifespan, but the most amount of performance and the most amount of grip.
Yeah, and then Piastri ended up pitting after like the first lap, and then he ended up getting like a 10-second penalty, didn't he, from the crash with Albon, which is not great.
He deserved that bloody
He
penalty.
really deserved that penalty.
What the bloody hell
it was
that?
sloppy as fuck.
It was also like a high-speed crash, but also it felt like it took like a million seconds for it to actually happen. And it was like, why are you still attempting this? That's not a good gap to go for, because he wasn't just dive bombing down the side. The inertia of what he did meant he couldn't slow down. He definitely wouldn't have been able to have turned. And if he did turn, he would have got steering lock. It wouldn't have worked. He would have gone spinning around. So I just thought ambition well over adhesion on that one. Didn't think that was going to go, 2 into 1 don't go. I'm saying all of Martin Brundle's catchphrases today. But I thought it was really sloppy, and I felt really sorry for Alex Albon, which is a fucking innocent passenger in all of that. And massive fucking bill for Williams, which they won't appreciate. A team that do not have the money, nor in this cost cap era, none of us have the bloody money to be having big repair bills like that to sort. So a slap on the wrist from Piastri for that one. That was dumb.
So only 16 out of the 22 drivers actually managed to finish the race. Obviously, Lindblad was the one out first. He went out on the first formation lap. Next to retire was Alex Albon, who had some nasty contact with Piastri, who was desperately trying to make up ground after returning from the pits in 14th place. But he went too far on lap 15 when he tried to go up the inside of Albon. Piastri gave Albon no room while trying to pass him on a corner, literally just driving completely into the side of him and destroying Albon's side pod. Albon was forced out of the race, and Piastri got a 10-second time penalty, which he served in the pits. And he ultimately finished the race in P11 outside of the points.
The 10-second time penalty would have been as well because he'd written off a car, basically, as well. Like, if it was just a bit of a clumsy mess, but he carried on running, he might have got a lesser penalty. But the fact that you've affected that driver's ability to continue on in the race deserves a harsher penalty. And also, you just can't defend it. There's nothing there that he did. It wasn't like someone else had squeezed him, so he was trying to take avoiding action, and as a result then concertinaed into Alex Albon. It was of his own making. So
he just didn't stop the car.
Yeah, I felt frustrated with Piastri because he's a great driver, but maybe he was just desperate to try and turn that result around. And I love the hunger, but the execution was terrible, so I felt sorry for Albon.
Overall, not a great race for the both of them.
No. Yeah. The issue with Lando Norris, he was the 5th driver to retire from the race, and he suffered a mechanical failure midway through the race. Norris fought his way back into the points after pitting from the lead to get rid of those inter tyres, and was running in 8th on lap 40 when his race came to an end. So, car just said no more.
Yeah, not great at all.
Pointless outing for McLaren.
It was. They did not show their class today. I know they're a lot better than that, and they would have been very frustrated with that. I don't get why they put both of the cars on intermediate tyres. I think that would have been their first boo-boo. Because if you're going to go for an aggressive strategy and go for something that's a gamble, then put one driver on that mixed tyre strategy and put the other one on a different one. That way you can monitor the situation, and at least one of them might be on the right strategy. Put them both on the wrong strategy and they're both on the wrong strategy, and that's that.
I mean, they always say with like wet weather races, it comes down to the driver telling you when is the right time to change tyres, because they're the ones that feel the impact of the water on the track on the wheels, and the pit crew and the garage are a bit blind to it. It's based on the driver's feeling in the car when the right time to change the tyres is. So when Piastri is saying over all of those formation laps, these are the wrong tyres, they should have let him change.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, both of them were sloppy. I mean, that contact that Piastri ended up having, and then Lando took a trip across the grass, managed to get himself up to the top 10, and then ended up having to retire because of a gearbox issue. So, yeah, it was a bit of a miserable Sunday for them. But with a team that have been able to rise to the top in the sensation-like way that they did last year, I have no doubt that they seem like they have a car that could be back in the fight.
Yeah.
So that's very encouraging for them. But oh, yeah, not a good fucking weekend. Definitely a weekend to forget for all the papaya fans out there, my lord.
You know who else had a weekend to forget? George Russell.
Oh,
Georgie Porgy.
Now, the sprint was a complete spoiler for what was to come in this race. The battle between Antonelli and Russell continued, and it was entertaining as fuck.
It was intense.
It was, and it started really, really early on, and...
Was it like lap 7 that they started?
Yeah, so on lap 7, Antonelli locked up, ran wide, Russell takes the lead. Lap 13, Antonelli gets past Russell, and then Russell picks him back off. Antonelli cuts back across behind and misses his teammates' tyres by fractions. It was so close to actually making contact. Lap 18, Antonelli gets close as Russell locks up again. He got all the way alongside as they came down the start straight. Russell had the inside line. Antonelli was forced to hit his brakes earlier and concede. Lap 22, Russell swings wide to cover a move from Antonelli. He tries again at turn 1, but Russell covers him. Antonelli finally makes his move in the last corner, and down the straight, he is ahead of Russell, who doesn't counter into turn 1. Lap 24, Antonelli is lapping Norris. He locks up, runs wide, and gives back the lead to Russell. Lap 25, Antonelli makes a move in the final corner. He runs wide and across the track and comes back in the lead. He's told to give the position back. He says, "Why, mate? He pushed me off and I was already ahead." He gives the position back to Russell anyway, and then Antonelli tries again down the back straight into the final turn, but he wasn't close enough and Russell remains ahead. Lap 31, though, Russell starts to slow down. He stops on track and he is done. He had a sudden loss of power and he is angry. He threw his headrest across the track, slammed both of his fists on the nose of his car, and is honestly just raging. And as they're like pushing his car back during the virtual safety car, as the stewards are pushing his car off the track, he's just stood there behind the gates, like shaking his head, looking disappointedly at his car.
I mean, it was such a shock. And like the racing between them was, it was very entertaining to watch. Very, very intense. And really good driving from the both of them. Like really, really excellent driving. Because I thought they were going to crash at so many points. They were coming so close. And I think they did make contact as well at one point.
Yeah,
but,
I think there was a tap.
Yeah, but they managed to get through it. A part of me wishes that if one of them were to DNF, I would have preferred that one of them had DNF'd because of that fight between them and they accidentally like crashed or something, rather than it being a power unit failure. Because I feel like George can now come back and say, well, I would have won the race if my car didn't turn off. And Antonelli kind of loses a bit of that credit, where I think Antonelli very much could have just won it off of racing George that day and not because George had to DNF. But yeah, it was just a huge shock and obviously a huge disappointment for Russell, and I get him being angry. Apparently he was fined 5,000 euros for throwing the headrest. I get his frustration because now this is the 4th race in a row that Antonelli has won.
At the track that Russell said, like, is his fave.
Yeah, and it's something that's out of his control. It's because the car shut down.
And it now puts him 43 points behind Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, that's the point of contention that I'm looking at it from. For Russell, it'll be a worrying weekend because aside from the DNF that he had, he was kind of on the ropes compared to Antonelli the whole weekend. And for whatever reason, it just felt like Antonelli had something in his back pocket and he looked very, very strong all weekend compared to George. And George has been looking forward to coming to more of a traditional sort of racing circuit at Canada, and to leave with a 43-point deficit so early in the season. I mean, this is only the 5th race. You know, we've got, 17 more races to get through this year? Having an early lead in your back pocket is always really helpful, but the psychology of the fact that his young rookie teammate, I know he isn't really a rookie, but he still feels like a rookie. Obviously, Kimi dropped out of the top 2 in the sprint, and that was because of his, sort of hot-headed nature of doing what he did in the sprint, which was driving angry. Yes, he didn't get pole. George was still able to secure pole. And yes, George was leading when he did DNF, so that's another point in the bag for George. But apart from that, Kimi Antonelli just looked like he was on it. He looked like he had a real fighting spirit, and he looked like he was up for the challenge. I think the good thing about Kimi that I'm noticing is that he's not intimidated by George as a competitor. And that is even though it sounds like a small point, is actually quite a big deal, because sometimes you see, for example, when people race against Max, you can tell they're a little bit intimidated about racing against Max. Whereas Kimi does not feel that way. And that means that when push comes to shove and the gloves are off and they're in the middle of trying to overtake one another and try and get to the lead, Kimi feels like he can get past George. Yeah. And this sort of weekend is the reason why. So yeah, we're going to be going to Monaco next. From what I remember, last year, Monaco was an absolute shit show for both Mercedes, actually.
Yeah, because of that 2 pit stop thing that they had.
But in qualifying as well. Do you remember they had issues in qualifying as well? I believe one of them had a bump. So hopefully they can have a cleaner weekend, and because of the nature of Monaco, it will be all strategy and also qualifying. So George might be walking away with an easy 25 points just based on the fact that he's been very strong in qualifying, with Antonelli nipping at his heels slightly. But we'll have to see. Maybe the inflated excitement and confidence of Kimi Antonelli coming out of Canada might make his performance have that little bit of extra edge. We just don't know how it's going to go.
It will be hurting Russell's ego so much that he thought, okay, Lewis is gone, I'm now the senior person in this team, I'm going to be the one that wins them the championship and gets all the points and stuff like that. So to be losing out to his teammate who is a teenager, who has only been in F1 for 2 years, well, 1.5 years, really, at this point, like, that's going to sting. Yeah. And if you look at the podiums that we've had so far, Kimi Antonelli has been on every single one of them. He came second in Australia, and then he has won China, Japan, Miami, and Canada. Whereas if you look at Russell, he's only been on 2 podiums this year. He was first in Australia and he was second in China. That's got to hurt.
Totally true, yeah.
There's like a huge shift in their relationship compared to 2025, because 2025 was very much like a mentor-mentee relationship that they had in that team. And even watching Drive to Survive, you see it in like that scene when they were on the tube and George is like, oh yeah, like, you go here, have you not been on a tube before, blah blah blah. Very Big Brother energy.
George had never been on a fucking tube before.
Yes, probably. But now this year they're actual competitors, and that is going to be a struggle for Toto to manage, because he's going to have to choose between looking at the driver who's supposed to be the number 1 driver, who's supposed to be the more senior one, and realistically should be the one winning this year's championship, because you only get so many chances in a really good car. But you can't really deny the fact that Antonelli's fully outperforming him. It will be too obvious for him to be prioritizing George.
It does remind me slightly of 2007, where McLaren had signed this sensational new superstar talent of Lewis Hamilton that no one had really heard of much. They then had a star-studded lineup because they had Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion. Everyone was expecting that it would be Fernando Alonso that would be leading them, be the lead driver, and quickly realised that this Lewis Hamilton kid was trying to take over the whole bloody show. And it created a weird sort of atmosphere, because Lewis was meant to be knowing his place as being the second driver and the young kid that's learning from someone like Fernando. But instead, this bloody kid actually in Canada was his first win, I think, of
it was his very first win
in Formula One. And I think in the first 6 races he'd only gotten podiums. So there was a time in the season where he didn't go on the podium, and he didn't know not to drive into the normal sort of podium Parc Fermé place, because his whole time in Formula One, he'd only gone to the podium, which is crazy. And I think it's the same sort of tension. You're expecting this person to still need time and to not have as much confidence, and you're assuring that you're banking all of this performance like George has for years, and you're able to unleash it once you have a competitive car. Having your fucking teenager fucking teammate sort of trying to be, hey, he needs to give that place back. Hey, he's saying, shut the fuck up. What the fuck are you piping up for?
I was helping you with your homework last year.
Literally. Like, what the fuck? Go and have some dinner, will you? It's bath time. So the fact that then George, I actually thought that George's car had gone kaput after he went off the grass. I didn't realise that it was because his car had just completely shut off. One thing I would like to say in the favour of Mercedes, though, they had a big upgrade this weekend, which would have scared people up and down the paddock. And that was an original soundbite from the paddock. I did notice their race starts have gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
They weren't sluggish and slow off the line, looking like they just sort of fallen asleep at the wheel. They were on it and they were in it. So maybe Ferrari's deficit of having those launch off the line that we saw might be a thing of the past now, which is kind of annoying because it was quite funny watching that happen every 2 seconds. And it was a very unusual start procedure, and then having, all these cars revving up, the lights going, and then just seeing these two cars at the front really slow and these Ferraris just going straight past. But at least that's something they'll be very able to take stock of. I'm not sure that they'll be able to take much else positive from it because of the fact that George DNF'd.
Well, if we look at the points after the Canadian Grand Prix, Kimi's on 131 and George is on 88. The points gap between George and Leclerc and Hamilton in P3 and P4 is closer than George's gap to Kimi.
Oh,
so
God.
there's a 43-point gap between George and Kimi to get up to first place. But there's only 13 points between Leclerc and Russell, and only 16 points between Lewis and Russell. So he's really at risk of losing P2 in the championship if Kimi's form continues and George continues to decline.
Yeah, it's not done and dusted whatsoever. He needs to keep an eye on it, because the tracks that the Mercedes car will feel more comfortable and dominant at might be tracks that, that Ferrari don't, and vice versa. So there might be weekends where we see, McLaren looking more competitive, Ferrari looking more competitive, Red Bull looking more competitive. And as we saw, Lewis, even though he wasn't quite able to get in the fight for getting up to challenging Antonelli in P1, I just think the Ferrari just doesn't have the pace or the advantage of the engine like the Mercedes do. But he was able to get a decent haul of points, and was able, with George's DNF, was able to pick up P2. So this isn't all just wrapped up with Mercedes. If they start having a civil war and it's an inter-team battle, that could see them sinking points, as we saw with McLaren last year. They were so busy battling with one another that when Lando Norris, for example, crashed out in Canada last year, that was a huge haul of points they lost. So that can bleed, which ultimately allowed Max Verstappen to get back into the picture for the final race when he had no business being able to. So they do need to keep an eye on that, and I'm sure that'll be part of their debrief notes.
For Lewis as well, I don't think it was so much that he couldn't challenge Kimi Antonelli. I think it's because as well, he was behind Max for a very long period of that race, and he was trying to get closer and closer to try and get past him. And it was a really tight fight between him and Max to try and get past him, because it was I think he kept getting to 0.1, and then he'd go back to 0.5, and then it'd get to 0.1 again and go back to 0.5, and eventually he got past him. But I was thinking up until the end, Max still has a chance of getting past Lewis again, because the gap between them wasn't very far, and he managed to maintain it, and he managed to get second place. So that was also very impressive. And Ferrari have been the only other consistently competitive team since the start of the 2026 season, so you can't discount Ferrari's performance, and you can't discount the chance that they might be able to get past Russell, maybe even eventually get past Antonelli, who knows. And then Max is now back in the fight, and as we know from last year, Max came in late in the game in 2025, and then he ended up P2 in the championship, so he might end up doing the same thing this year. So Mercedes can't just count on the fact that they've got the best car, because there's still other strong drivers on that track.
Yeah, and fun fact for you, Lewis has obviously been on the podium in Canada several times, more than I can tell you. And this is his first time that he's finished P2 ever. He's always only ever won or come third.
Oh.
So it's his first time to stand on the second step in Canada, and it's also his first time getting P2 for Ferrari. It's his best result finish for Ferrari. And he said, "Oh man, it's the happiest day of my days at Ferrari so far. It feels great to be able to put the Ferrari on the podium and get my first second place with the team as well in the main race. And this is my second podium as well. I'm just elated and so proud of the team working so hard."
Yeah, super impressive from him.
I do think it was a nice way for Lewis to enjoy his Sunday. He did say that he's ditching the simulator and is just going to drive on instinct. And
I think it worked.
That seems to have really paid off for him. Maybe, maybe this is a new trick he can use. But he decided that he was going to not use that and instead take up a new setup direction. I definitely think that he had some good luck with the strategy because he had an excellent pit stop, which helped reduce the gap to 5 seconds down to nothing, and then was able to pass Max. And I thought that was the best Lewis had in his locker, to be honest. I thought it was really great racing from the pair of them. It was exciting. It was measured. He was very calm. He didn't jump into it. He was being very patient and was just waiting for the right moment. But he ultimately decided then to go round the outside of turn one. I didn't expect him to do it.
No.
I was like, what the fuck? Out of nowhere. Damn.
He had to try something different because all of the standard overtaking that he was trying to do wasn't working for him.
But it must have felt a little bit bittersweet. And they said it on commentary, and it was a very good point, is that Kimi Antonelli from Mercedes, the seat that Lewis decided to leave on the top step, leading the championship whilst Lewis is having to settle for P2. And let's be honest, has been promoted because of the fact that George Russell was out of the picture. And also, I feel like because the McLarens were out of the picture too. You know, it doesn't paint a true to reality piece. However, I think Lewis turned up to the weekend and was ready and really wanted to give it his all. And I thought he did a great race. I think he decided I'm going to make it the best of this, and that worked. So if he can keep that momentum going, I think he'll be on his way to a good season.
But to give you another one of Martin Brundle's famous sayings, in order to finish first you have to finish.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to take advantage of the fact that the McLarens are out of the picture and George Russell has not finished the race.
No, you're completely right. But I guess he can't have an inflated sense of self
and
be like, I got P2, Charles didn't, I'm amazing, because there is extenuating sounds. Like, for example, I think Lewis finished 10 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. So, there was no question that he was going to be getting past and going for the victory. So there is still work to do in Ferrari, but I'm sure this will spur them on. But I did feel very sorry for Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
I felt very sorry for him. He said on Saturday that this had been one of the worst weekends for him in Formula One, and that didn't feel like it got much better on Sunday. He was struggling with brakes, and then he was struggling with tyres, and then he was just struggling with that general feeling of the car. And obviously in the race he was stuck in fifth until he was jumped by Isaac Hadjar during the pit stops. And then Isaac Hadjar almost drove him off the fucking road, which cost him even more time. Obviously, Hadjar got a penalty for that, but it didn't help Charles Leclerc's race. He made it through, but then was a distant fourth to the rest of the race after George retired. And then if you remember, just on his own accord, he ended up accidentally sort of like skidding and nearly going to the Wall of Champions. And then Lewis basically said on the radio, it was all hopeful, like, we can do this, guys. Tell Charles to pick up the pace. And then they were like, okay, Lewis, like, damn, he's being a real team player today. And Lewis is like, we're really going to do this. We've been on a long journey together. I feel like it's all coming together today, I just feel like part of the family. Like Charles' my brother and Fred's my dad. And then hopefully he'll tell Charles and we'll beat them all. We can do it today. And then they relayed that to Charles, and he was like, stop talking to me. I don't want to hear anything out of your mouth to the end of the race. You're doing this too much. Shut your mouth. And he, and there was no sense
She's
of...
paraphrasing, of course.
Well, you don't know that. But the energy from Charles was that he was getting too much information, that they needed to improve communications, and that he just wanted him to shut the fuck up.
Sometimes when you're having a sulk and you're just in a bad mood and your friends are trying to pick you up and they're just like, it's okay, it's all going to be okay. And you're just like, no, just leave me to wallow. I think that's where Charles was at.
Yeah, I think he was at the point of his sulk where he just wanted everyone to die.
Yeah.
He just wanted everybody to die, and he just wanted to be with his wife and his dog, and that was that. Eating some lek.
I wish I was eating some lek
Honestly,
right now.
this weather, some lek.
There were two other retirees that we haven't spoken about. One was Fernando Alonso, who was the third person to retire from the race due to what the team described as a problem with his seat.
He just wants to see his child.
The problem is the seat is too big for his child to sit in, so he can't retire yet.
Well, yeah, but he's like, all the vibrations and stuff to the hands, we were like, fair enough, but, retiring because of your seat. Come on, that's silly. Just when you pit, get someone to put a pillow behind you and you'll be fine. Just admit that you don't want to be in the Aston Martin, you don't want to drive it around in Canada. I get it, bro.
Fair.
Life is long. You've been driving a long time, I get it. But I just don't believe you.
And the 6th car to retire was Sergio Perez, who was forced to abort his race and pit with a completely broken front suspension.
His car had a right ding in it when he came
the
in.
front basically just blew out on him.
I mean, I'm not surprised to see either Alonso or Perez to have DNF'd. If you say that about any other race for the 2026 season, if you predict 6 weeks from now, whatever race that is, that it's going to be Alonso and Perez or Bottas or Stroll that have DNF'd, there's like an 80% chance that you will be right. Because that's been like the theme of the season so far.
Well, they are all drivers that are still on 0 points, along with Nico Hulkenberg, who
You said his name wrong.
Nico Hulkenberg!
Thank you.
Who really needs to be, like, bucking up his work a bit, because his teammate is in P15 in the championship, and he's on 0 points currently. Like, Bortoletto has 2 points, and yes, they were 2 points that he got at the start of the season and hasn't had any points since, but at least he's got points.
Yeah, get off his neck. He's trying his best. He's just a boy trying his best.
Now, you mentioned some penalties that had been issued. The stewards were busy.
Yeah.
Because I've got a long list of penalties that were issued.
You know what? Too bloody right. I mean, come on, they must get paid fucking God knows how much. And then, there's races where nothing gets done. Because there's been quite a few races where nothing has happened. So, I think too right.
But before you talk about the penalties, can I raise an issue that I raised in the last episode and it's still an issue today? Because
The coverage. Because I have no idea where half of those penalties have come from. I have no idea where half of the yellow flags have come from during the race. Because it felt like every 15 minutes there was a yellow flag on the screen and then it would just disappear after like a couple of minutes. But they just don't show it. When Oscar Piastri and Alex Albon collided, that wasn't on screen. George DNF took a while for them to show that on screen as well and show when his car actually ended up dying. There was at one point, it was Lewis and Max racing, and they showed a replay as they were still racing. So yes, you're right. So it was a very minor moment that they cut to a replay of Max and Lewis battling whilst they were still battling.
Yeah.
So we were having to watch the exciting part in a small little screen that they'd opened up on the panel of where you see all the timings. And instead of being able to see it at the full screen, we were just like having to squint into one car, like which car is which. It's so annoying.
So whoever's in control of your coverage currently and replace it with someone who knows what they're doing, because I'm sick of being able to half watch the race every single weekend and missing all of these important moments.
It's not just fans, like the commentators also seem a little bit lost.
Yeah.
They're having to look because they have all the sector times, they can see where everybody is, like live trackers on the map of where the drivers are, and they are the ones that are able to give us the most information because they can see it all in front of them. And even they at points are like, I think this has happened, we can see this happen, and they're having to look at like the mini sector times to see whether that might have been the case. And I'm like, if you don't know, how the bloody hell are we gonna know? I feel like as soon as there's a yellow flag, they should just cut to the closest camera that's there.
Literally.
It doesn't matter if it's just a small moment or it's somebody going off track, it doesn't matter. We still want to see what it is because that could impact the race.
Exactly.
If you're cheering on for somebody in first, it's about to be overtaken, there's a yellow flag, it could potentially neutralise the race, which means there might be pit stops. There's excitement there. It's a storyline.
Yeah.
Cut to the fucking yellow flag and to cut to that sector and see what's going on.
There was a point where we were getting Kimi Antonelli's point of view as he was racing and he was 10 seconds ahead of Lewis or Max at that point. And it's like, nothing is going to happen right now. He's just going to continue racing as he usually is. So why are you showing Kimi Antonelli? Show the other people on the track that are actually fighting. So, that's my rant over.
We're moaning Maddies today, aren't we?
Yeah.
So do you want to get some clarity on what those penalties and stuff were about?
Yes, please.
So there was a 10-second time penalty for Piastri for causing a collision with Albon. There was a 10-second time penalty for Hadjar, who had more than one change of direction while he was defending against Leclerc, which is very naughty. You can't do that, Hadji. You should know better.
Well, yeah, I mean, fucking Charles nearly went to the back of him because he's already teed up. Okay, I'm right behind him. I'm going to pull out to the right and I'm going to overtake him. And then Hadjar moved and then moved again, which means that as Charles is trying to take avoiding action to get past him and to get out of the way of his car, he's then blocking him, which means that there's not many other areas that Charles can go. He can brake, which is what he had to do, and make sure he didn't get hit. But that is causing a collision for another driver, and it's putting both of you in danger, and it's stupid. Not cool, Hadji.
There was a 5-second time penalty for Bottas for speeding in the pit lane.
That's just rudimentary. I mean, come on. You have a pit lane limiter for a reason, stick to it.
There was a stop and go penalty for Hadjar again for a yellow flag infringement where he just didn't slow down while he was driving through a yellow flag area.
Driving frustrated, I think. Not cool.
There was a 5-second time penalty for Hülkenberg for speeding in the pit lane.
That's also silly. Come on, guys.
There was a 5-second time penalty for Bortoleto for driving unnecessarily slowly under the virtual safety car.
Oh, so they have a limiter when it goes down to the virtual safety car. They have a speed limit that they have to hit and they can't exceed. So if you go past that, then you will get a penalty. But if you also go too slowly under that, you will get a penalty. Because it might be that you're trying to create a gap. It might be that you're trying to do it for an advantage of which the stewards do not think is cool. So we don't think it's cool either. Not cool.
Yes. Hulkenberg and Lawson were under investigation for a safety car infringement sort of thing from the formation lap. What that was basically during all of those formation laps at the start, the race director had said to use the pit lane as like, not the actual pit lane, but like the line for entering the pit lane to get your car across to avoid Lindblad's car being moved, and they basically didn't do that. But because there was so much confusion around the whole formation lap stuff, the penalty would have been a stop and go applied after the race, but they decided it's too harsh of a penalty, nothing actually happened, it's fine, you'll both be let off with just like a little warning. Slap on the wrist.
The stewards being a bit over the top there.
And the final penalty was the €5,000 fine for Russell, which is suspended for 12 months subject to no further breaches of a similar nature, and that is for him throwing his headrest out of the car when he retired. He explained that he was extremely frustrated having failed to finish the race and expressed his embarrassment of what subsequently followed.
No. Don't be embarrassed. What the fuck? Sorry, is it embarrassing now? Is it cringe to care about something? No, the stewards are being stupid. We want those slow-mo fucking clips. Do you know why? Because they make amazing little VTs when we're watching the coverage. When I'm seeing zoom, zoom, zoom to a high beat track, I don't want pictures of people waving. I want people like George throwing their headrest out of the fucking seat. It's called drama. It's called pizzazz. It's called caring. It's called being an athlete. Don't you say you're embarrassed about it. That's dumb. Not cool.
Well, he apologised and acknowledged that he didn't set a good example and offered to apologise publicly.
Sorry. What the fuck? We're having a press conference for him doing that, and what? There's going to be kids all across the fucking globe now throwing headrests around. What are you talking about? For goodness sake, you're allowed to be frustrated. I don't think that's a bad thing. If he punched a marshal or something, or he smashed a window, then yeah, fine, you're a fucking idiot. I think that's, I think Russell's being too hard on himself. I think this weekend has taken a toll, and now he's overthinking everything that he's doing, and he shouldn't, because he shouldn't be getting anxiety, almost like when you have a hangover and you have anxiety. He's having anxiety of doing something because, I was a bit embarrassing, I was a bit angry. Yeah, because you care, baby. And in this life, there's nothing more beautiful than... Excuse me.
I think he's just been media trained. I don't think he actually has any anxiety over this. I think he's just been told by his communications team, you need to apologize.
Nav just read out that he was willing to do a press conference about the apology.
Publicity.
That's crazy.
Publicity.
That's crazy.
He wants
That's
the airtime. We know George
Well, the
Carey
stewards
Russell.
accepted his apology.
Of course they did.
Well, I don't think he should apologise. I think he should say, I damn well meant it.
As long as he doesn't do anything similar in the next year,
No,
he doesn't
don't
have to pay the
discourage
fine.
competition and excitement. I like it when they get like this.
It's not the competition, as long as he doesn't throw a tantrum.
Okay, but I want him to throw a tantrum because of the competition. I like this side of Formula One. I love it when they do things like this.
Realistically, I don't think a €5,000 fine is going to hurt him. I don't think
Literally.
it's going to be top of his mind to avoid doing it.
Well, he better still be the same George I love.
Do you love him?
I do, in my own sort of way. I found him, when you saw him behind the railings, he just kept like shaking his hands. All I could think was, everybody hurts sometimes. I loved it. Yes, for those of you listening, I can sing. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I loved the drama. And you know what? Without George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, the race wouldn't have been as exciting. He delivered some great racing. So he does say some silly things. I didn't agree with the whole thing of like, if I'd have been racing 5 years earlier, I'd have won 2 championships. That's crazy. But it's also part of George's charm. You can't take away the charm. He shines so bright.
Anything else you want to say about the race?
No, I think I'm comfortable with everything that's been covered. I think we've had a good run.
All right.
I think the fun must end now.
Should we move on to the Grand Prix podium?
Oh, yeah, never mind. The fun isn't ending. My bad. It's been a while.
Okay, we are going to say who was the prick of the race, whose performance was disastrous, who basically shouldn't have even shown up, who was grand, who did a good job, deserves a pat on the back, and who was the grand prick of the race, whose performance was as good as this podcast here. Okay, are we ready to start with prick?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Oscar Piastri.
Oh, I was going to say Isaac Hadjar.
Didn't say anything.
I know, but I got overwhelmed by the sounds around me.
Oh. Oscar Piastri.
Isaac Hadjar.
My man started at P4 for the race, right? And he ended that in P11. And I think that his race was absolutely awful, to be honest with you. And I don't necessarily think that is completely down to him. The tyre choices was, not the right one to be doing. But also that contact with Alex Albon felt really
valid.
sloppy and unnecessary. And on top of that, I just didn't feel like he did much of a fight to get back because it ruined his race. Yeah. And he finished the race 2 laps down. So considering how great Oscar Piastri is and some of the amazing races I've seen him do, I just felt it was well below the calibre of which I've come to expect him. Along with him and his team, I just thought made a bit of a mess of the whole race, to be honest.
Yeah, valid. I said Hadjar because he obviously got the 10-second penalty for moving more than once while defending, and then he also got a stop and go for just not slowing down under yellow flags, and I think these are quite sloppy mistakes.
They are, to be honest with you. I think both of them could quite happily take the title of prick, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I just went with Oscar just because that slam into Alex Albon I can't undo from my head. Memory,
also the expectations are higher.
Yeah, they are.
And at least Hadjar finished 5th.
Yeah. That's true.
It wasn't a very dignified 5th, but he did finish 5th.
No, that is very true. That is very true.
Okay. Oscar Piastri is the prick of the Grand Prix. Shall we move on to Grand?
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Franco Colapinto.
Oh.
No, you lost out. It's Franco Colapinto. He finished in 6th. He got 8 points.
Yeah.
He did amazingly. And he is 11th in the championship standing. He's on 15 points. He's only 5 points below his teammate Pierre Gasly, who has been racing for yonks.
On top of that, it was just a really nice error-free sort of race weekend for Franco. Yes, he could have quite easily been 8th if it wasn't for the fact that the McLarens ended up not really being that competitive because of their races. But, you take the gifts of which others give to you.
Yeah.
And the point is that the execution from Franco Colapinto, we've been struggling to see. He makes mistakes, he can get a bit trigger happy when he's doing overtakes and can get into scraps, or the pace isn't there. Whereas this weekend, it all seemed to be going the right way, the right direction, at the right time. So it seemed like he was in a good rhythm, and maybe he's matured a little bit as a racer, but I was really happy to see him in 6th. That's a fantastic result. I mean, Jesus, it's fucking Alpine.
Yeah.
Look at our, if you go back to our Red Flags and White Lies series, the Alpine episode is not a particularly positive episode. We were hoping that they would be able to turn things around in 2026. A P6 from an Alpine. I mean, that's really impressive. So yeah, well done to Franco. Well done.
I think Gucky would be happy and proud to whack their logo on him.
I think so.
Fair.
Translation, Gucci.
Mine was Lewis Hamilton, just because, he got P2. Also, I think him overtaking Max was really good, because I think 2025 him, if he was in that position, I think he would have stayed in 3rd or dropped down to 4th even. So I think he had a very, very good race this weekend, but I see your point with Colapinto as well.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah, we gave Colapinto grand at the last Grand Prix as well. So
he's been having a good run of form at the minute.
He's been nice and consistent.
him.
We just need that little bit extra, the little extra push to make him Grand Prix.
There could be a time, we'll have to see. There could be a race where there's a mixed up grid, maybe change of weather conditions, and maybe that's when he can get himself a surprise podium or something, and that's when we'll give him Grand Prix. But don't you worry, Franco, keep working hard and you'll get the rewards you deserve being called Grand Prix. Okay, should we go for Grand Prix now?
Yes. 3, 2, 1. Lewis Hamilton.
Antonelli.
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to do that. Go on,
It's
then.
Lewis. It's Lewis.
Plead your case, Reem.
Kimi was very hot-headed and he was complaining a lot on the radio this weekend and blah, blah, blah. But when it came down to his racing against George Russell, I think he delivered a great performance. I mean, he was able to defend himself beautifully. He didn't cause a crash, where I think someone with his experience would have maybe accidentally ended up crashing. I mean, we saw it last year with Lando, who has a lot more experience than Kimi, and he was trying to overtake Piastri, and he ended up making a silly mistake in crashing, and Antonelli didn't. And he has a history of crashing, Antonelli. So I was quite impressed, and then for him to win his 4th consecutive race and lead the championship by 43 points ahead of Russell, I think it's really, really impressive. So for me, he deserves Grand Prix 100%.
I totally agree. I do think that Kimi Antonelli had a fantastic weekend and was able to pull it back from the brink of disaster with all of his angry driving in the sprint race. However, I also think that Kimi Antonelli has turned up to this season, has been doing brilliant performances like this since the very start. So I do think that, for me, Lewis Hamilton has had a really tumultuous time at Ferrari. 2025 did not go how we thought it was going to go. He had difficult communication issues with his race engineer, Adami. He was always getting overshadowed performance-wise from Charles Leclerc, and that has continued as well. Whereas this weekend, he was the lead Ferrari
He
man.
just came alive.
Yeah, he had all these retirement rumours and all this nonsense, and he told us why he is not ready to retire and why we should not be asking him to fucking retire, because he's still got performance in the bank. So Kimi Antonelli has got a bright future ahead of him. I don't think anyone can say that he doesn't. But it was fantastic to see a little bit of vintage Lewis back, and it was lovely to see the racing that him and Max did as old foes. They raced very respectfully, but it was really edge of your seat stuff, really exciting. And it was nice to be seeing a battle that late on in the race, you know, towards the end. They still had the ability to be fighting hard between two fantastic champions. So I thought Lewis not only put on a proper show for us, it felt like Lewis of old was back, and it was really nice to watch. And unfortunately, Charles Leclerc didn't have the race weekend that he would have desired. But Charles Leclerc is a great competitor and definitely keeps Lewis busy trying to, you know, outperform him. But it doesn't happen often, so I think he deserves Grand Prix this time because of that.
Here. I also think Kimi maybe got a little bit lucky with George retiring. You know, George was gone halfway through the race. You don't know what that second half of the race would have looked like. You don't know
Don't
if
be
he
a
would have ended up-
George. Don't be a George. Don't be a George, because that's what George is going to be saying. He's going to be saying, if I didn't have the power unit failure, I would have won the race. No, I think Antonelli would have still won it.
Yeah,
I
well
think he
done,
would
Nav. Now you said that. George has suddenly woken up and said, I'm going to start saying this now.
I just mean that, like, Antonelli was getting angry again, and just like he was in the sprint, he was getting that vim in his driving style. And as we saw in the sprint, he started getting sloppy the more angry he got. So if he was continuing to be like that, you just don't know if he would have ended up making a mistake that would have, you know, cost him positions or cost him the race or whatever. And because George went, there was then no one really close enough to actually properly challenge him for the rest of the race. So he kind of, like, the second half of the race was just easy for him.
I don't know. I feel like he would have still challenged him. I think he could have still won it. Even if George was
I think
still
he
in
could
the
have
race.
still won it, but because George retired, it was then like the second half of his race. He didn't really have to do that much.
Yeah, that is true. I honestly think they both would have run out of fuel before they stopped racing and finally was able to find out who could win on pure
They'd
speed.
still be racing now.
Exactly. I mean,
could.
like, they'd just be swapping over and over and over and over, you know, like the fucking 24-hour endurance race. But yeah, I do get your point, but I don't think this is going to be the last time that we see these two coming head to head.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe getting a bit closer to one another on track and causing some collisions and some drama and a headache for Toto Wolff to have to deal with. But this could be the start of the civil war for Mercedes. We just don't know it yet. And if that is the case, we'll have to see who comes out on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff. Fucking finally.
Literally.
Well, that is the Canadian Grand Prix. Girls, you'll be relieved to know that there isn't a sprint race for a while.
Thank goodness. And we're going back into the European leg, so we're going to have some more normal races. Sorry for those of you that are from, you know, America or Australia and places where it's not as easy to be able to see the races. Appreciate the dedication. But we've done our hard labour for 5 races and we're fucking tired!
Yeah. It's going to be nice to have races starting at like 2 p.m.
Hell yeah, bring it on.
Get a normal sleep schedule back.
But we are falling into Monaco, so
Yeah.
I will try my best to come up with an intro that is so interesting and inspiring that you actually do want to watch the race so that you can come to this episode and understand the context. So it's going to be fun.
Last year it was Scuderia F1, wasn't it?
It was, and I'm going to bring something fun and delulu to maybe make up for a lack of excitement for the Monaco Grand Prix. But don't worry, they might bring out a batshit crazy rule change again, so please watch so that you can listen to us.
Should we have one last listen to Habibti Racing?
Sure.
As we head out?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, Grand Prix back in Montreal. Habibti Racing still ain't scored a point, but the hospitality different though. Different tier of suffering this weekend. Buzz. Yeah. Touchdown, Yule with the team looking stressed again. 40 crate, 6 cousins, 1 visa issue with the border check. 8 smoke meet at 3 a.m. with the paddock pass hanging. Now the whole garage smell like turbo heat and cardamom fragrance. High baby said the upgrades coming. None of them fit. Carbon fiber held together with vibes and zip ties from Canadian Tire and shit. We in the paddock next to Ferrari, pretending we don't compare. But our front wing flexing on the straights like Drake's accent, switching mid-year in, and the team principal walk in. White Thobe, gold chain Oakleys, talking about inshallah podium. Brother, the car barely starts coldly.
Habibti Racing nights, Montreal skyline, shisha smoke in the motorhome, tire blankets on neon light. Habibti Racing nights, we was outside. Safety car and strategy, but the vibe's still worldwide.
Yeah.
The vibe's still worldwide.
Yeah. Shorty from Laval said she loved Formula 1 now. Only knowing 3 drivers and she calling DRS turbo somehow. I can't even blame her though. The whole city cinematic. Rain clouds over Circuit Gillsville, got everybody dramatic. One mechanic crying quietly. Cause Lance passes on lap 2. Now we chain smoking back outside the garage saying we are so cooked. To BB is true and honestly move. I seen our strategists lose composure over medium tires down. Lotus 7 weather apps still managed to set the car on fire. We'll never spend $40 million developing a car just to get overtaken by Williams in a turn 10. That changes you, that humbles you spiritually. I seen a man throw a telemetric screen across the garage tonight and ask some pistachio. Go back like 10 minutes later like nothing happened. That's racing. No, we outside Crescent Street. Team jackets all sad and fake sponsor logos on the car, but the after party actually happening. DJ playing had to be remixes over old Drake cuts. Everybody saying yalla yalla while the gearbox give up. Crotty called us an ambitious midfield project. That's British for tragic, but the merch line still sold out cause the brand been too cinematic.
Now it's 2 a.m. Rain falling on the harbor. I'm with 6 engineers arguing if the floor stall caused the understeer problem harder. Nobody knows, but somebody ordered more shawarma to the garage, so morale improved immediately. Habibti Racing nights, still no points inside. But hospitality suite got marble floors and purple lights. Habibti Racing nights, Montreal sunrise. Car broke down on formation lap, but brother, what a fight.
Yeah, driver says he has no power.
Driver says he has no power. Call.
Yeah.